I'm scared to tell my coach. Now, these are probably words that you've heard before if you're a parent, and some you've probably never heard if you're a coach. Today, we're going to talk about how important this phrase is when it comes to our athletes, and hopefully try to shed some light on how important it is for our athletes to talk to our coaches when they're experiencing things in the gym that aren't quite right.
For information on today's topic and more, check out thecheerdoc.com. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8.
So I had something that was kind of weighing on me that I wanted to talk to you guys about. I've had a couple of athletes lately, not just cheer, but with other sports as well, that have said a similar thing, and it's really kind of stuck in my head the last couple of days, and I really wanted to address this with our coaches and parents, but also for our athletes as well. So the words that I've heard, or some variation of, are "I'm scared to tell my coach," and it's something that is not surprising that when an athlete is hurt, that they wouldn't want to be taken out of their sport. They wouldn't want to be sidelined, and so it's not surprising that we hear these words, but it does bring to light a problem that athletes have in the sports they do, and that's fear of being removed so much that they're willing to risk more injury instead of getting their injuries resolved. And a lot of that comes from how we present the sport to our athletes as coaches and as parents. But it says a lot about the culture of not the sport as a whole, but as either a team or a program or whatever the case may be. So the thing I want to talk to you guys about is, as coaches and parents, we need to cultivate an environment for our athletes where they feel supported, they feel secure, to a level on their team or in their program, whatever the case may be, that they are not scared to come to us and to tell us when something is wrong, or when they have pain, or when something is hurting. I get it. If there's an injury, and that person has to be taken off, that creates a high level of anxiety. So instead of addressing injuries, or pain when it first comes about, what I'm finding is a lot of athletes will be scared to tell someone in fear that they're going to lose their spot, they're going to be out for the year, they're going to be taken away completely and not able to compete or to perform their sport, so they don't say anything. And it gets worse, and it gets worse. And then finally, 3 or 4 months later, they finally make it in. And if you have, a lot of these injuries are from overuse and bad mechanics. So if you jump on these types of pains first, or early, I should say, you can stop a lot of that problem and rewire the mechanics, and then it never becomes an injury, so to say. It may have just been, improper use. And so when we reinforce these bad mechanics and then start to now change them because we're trying to avoid something that's painful, we actually end up making the whole situation worse. And a lot of times the response when I talk to these athletes, like, why didn't you stop, or why have you not come in earlier? And their response is, I was scared to tell my coach. Or when they come in and they have an injury that may be more severe than initially expected, and we say, hey, you're going to have to take some time to let this heal. Like there's some injuries, that just need time. Time is a big factor. And there is an overwhelming just expression of anxiety. I mean, you just see it in their eyes. Their eyes kind of get, big. There's a big emotional moment. And, when you talk, and kind of asking about it, and the answer is, I don't, how do I tell my coach? Like, I don't want to tell my coach. And so, this message is geared towards, anyone in the sport that is, in a program of any type, cheerleading, soccer, football, baseball, anything. We need to cultivate a culture within our sports where our athletes are not scared to come to us when something doesn't feel good or something is painful, because a lot of times if we catch things early, it becomes a non-issue. It's the fear of being taken out immediately, losing everything they have worked for. All these things that plant this seed or water this seed of, maybe it'll go away if I'll work through it. And that ends up setting our athletes up for failure, because in their minds, a lot of, young athletes, they don't see macro. They don't see the big picture. They see right now in this moment. And it's hard for them to look ahead and say, okay, I've got something that's bothering me. Typically, rehab protocol and things are going to take just a couple of weeks. I can modify my activity so I can still do things. I'm still a valuable member of the team or the program. They don't think that way. All they think of is, I hurt, I'm injured, I'm out forever, and that's it. And with our sport, we have so long of a season. We have so many competitions. You could have an injury, get treated, rehab, and be back on the floor and not miss a huge part of the season, very small piece. And the problem that arises is the biggest events are at the end of the season. And so when you have that ahead, a lot of athletes that say, I'll just push through it, I don't want to tell anybody, I want to keep it kind of quiet, they're actively getting more injured as we get closer to the big event. And so instead of thinking, let's get this fixed now, they say, well, I'll just push it off. They're not thinking big picture. So as coaches and parents, we need to cultivate this environment of, let's address things when they're small so they don't become a big issue, and then we'll have plenty of time to rehab, repair, do all the things we need to do, and still be able to compete on a higher level. So I would love to start to create a paradigm shift in our sport and sports across the board with all young athletes to eliminate the fear and anxiety of being honest about what they feel. And as a coach and as a parent, it's something that, you need to show support from the beginning and let them know, hey, if you've ever got anything that hurts or that's bothering you, let's talk about it. Let's get it on the table so that we can hopefully address it early so it doesn't become a problem that's going to sideline for, an extended period of time. The most common one that you'll see these kinds of things with, and just as an example, would be like a spine injury. If, early, and we talked about this in one of our blogs a while back, but your first stage of spine pain for tumbling is usually a joint irritation. If we let it keep going, it becomes stress in the joint or some swelling or stress reaction. Once we get to that point, and the bone is actually being affected at that level, the only thing really that can help that in the biggest picture, the biggest factor is time. So if we push, we can regress back in the early stages, but once we hit a certain point, that's it. It's going to be a minimum time frame to let that bone heal essentially so that we don't progress into something like a fracture. So there are things that we can address very quickly, but a lot of injuries that are overuse injuries, once you hit a certain threshold, the recovery time isn't the same. It's not like I'll wait a month and then it's still going to be a couple of weeks. Like the longer you wait, the bigger the recovery time gets. And that is a big thing that athletes need to understand. So as a coach, as a parent, let's start to cultivate and create this dialogue with our athletes to say, hey, if you've ever got anything bothering you, do not be fearful to come to us and tell us, hey, this is hurting or this doesn't feel good or let's get it on the table so that we can address these things early and not be scrambling as the season goes on trying to find people to replace our athletes either on the floor, on the court, on the field. Let's create that dialogue early. Hope this was informative, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to check out thecheerdoc.com for more content. Also, if you found the material today valuable, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It's very much appreciated. Thanks for listening and have an incredible day.